Hello, and welcome to Havoc Wargaming, dedicated to bringing you the uncommon. For those of you who haven't met me, my name is Ron, and today we're going to be bringing you a review and how to build video on Antenocitis, or however it's pronounced, their MDF wall kits. So let's get started. Recently I had an opportunity to order a few wall sets, 3 different kits from Antenocitis, or however their company is pronounced. Maybe some of you know and can tell me or give me advice in the comments down below. The walls are relatively easy to make, but they're not well defined. There's no instructions, and they look like all the parts are going to be interchangeable, and they're not really. So I thought I would do a brief video showing the assembly of the walls. Let's get started. Here are some of the walls that are built by Antenocitis Workshop. There is the Cinder breeze block walling. This is the short size, called that because it's obviously a little shorter than the full height. They come in with two different lengths. All of these walls will come in 2 different lengths, a full length and a half length, so you can build different arrangements. This is the rendered wall, same thing. This is the tall height, and you'll see that it's only difference really in the finished model between the breeze walls and Cinder breeze block walling is that this has the plaster. It's a piece of gray board, but they make it look as if it's been plastered over. That lays on top. These are only a challenge because unlike the cinder block walls, which are completely rastered, this is only rastered in little areas. And so it takes a little bit of guesswork and mix and matching to find out which of these gray board pieces work with which of the hardboard, or the actual MDF, where the rastering, because you can see here, you can just make out here where the rastering will show through, and that's what you're after, is having that brick look show through it. And that leads to the point of this video. There are no directions, as far as I could find, online for how to build these wall kits. And they're only walls, so they're relatively easy to build, but not as easy as they look. Everything one would think would be completely interchangeable, and they're very, very close. Everything looks very similar, looks like it's interchangeable, and it isn't exactly. So what I thought I would do is go through and show part of the process with my full wall set, or by that I mean the tall walls. I mentioned that this is the half height, and the rendereds come in a half height as well. But I couldn't afford to buy all of them. I would like to get some of the low rendered walls eventually as well, but I was spending a lot of money, and Havoc Wargaming right now is completely funded by myself, with the exception of certain gifts for Christmas and holidays, and I was running out of money. But these are the tall walls. I bought a set of the tall walls as well, in the Cinder. They come with a little guideline. This is not instructions on how to assemble them. It's basic MDF assembling hints. It's things like cleaning the soot off the MDF, removing any paper covering if it's there. This doesn't have that. Using a sharp knife with a thin blade to release parts from the frame. Do not push out by hand. I have been able to push these ones out by hand, but that can be a challenge with some models. Very importantly, it says dry fit parts before gluing. This matters perhaps more with this kit because of what I was describing earlier than any other kit I've built, where the parts all look like they're very interchangeable, but in the end they are not. They only fit together certain ways properly. So dry fitting is very helpful with these. I'm not planning on putting the whole thing together, but I'll build a wall or two just to show you the basic assembly situation. First thing we do is we wipe off any soot. This probably is only going to be of limited success. You can see all the dirt that came off that, and you can already see some dirt on my fingers. This can be a problem with any MDF kits. I think it's from the burning process, but it's sometimes worse with these pre-painted kits. So it may have to do with that as well. So this won't alleviate, as I said, getting dirt on my fingers, but it's going to help. And it's a worthwhile step to take because not only do your fingers get filthy in this process, if you don't do this, but that filth that gets on your fingers can also get onto the parts, and that's particularly awkward if it gets onto the gray board pieces like those. That seems to stain much easier than the MDF does. So the first thing to do is to find out where they're different and how they're lined up, and they don't always follow the same setup. So here's what I'm referring to. If you look at this wall, I don't know if you can see this on the video. I'll try to bring it up here to the camera. But you see that peg is all the way at the bottom there. These pegs are not. So they look very, very similar, but they're not quite the same. So what that's showing me is these are printed on here or burned on here in pairs. These two go together, these two together, and so on. In a similar fashion, they don't follow the same procedure through all of their printing. So these two go together just like the other ones did, where they're above and below each other. But you'll notice that these are all exactly alike. So all of these top ones go with these ones here. So these ones are like this and that make a set. If it's like the other sets I've built, the corner pieces are all exactly the same and are completely interchangeable. But that's basically what I was referring to that you want to look for. So the piece is going to go together. What I've been doing is I've been popping one of these out. I'm going to do it a little different than my normal procedure because I don't want to bore you guys any more than I'm doing naturally. They recommend on that slip a glue I've never heard of. I'm presently using Elmer's because, well, this isn't my actual workshop. The studio is not where my workshop is located. I usually use, what is it, a Lean's tacky glue. I really like that glue. I like the way it sets up. I think it holds better while you're waiting than just Elmer's, but Elmer's is what I've got. So what I do is I put glue all along the inside of there and then on these tabs. I line up the tabs, and this is where the thing matters, where I said about, yeah, I just realized I broke the rules of not dry fitting. The rastered side should go inward because you're going to be able to, that's going to be the outside of its corner. You see how this piece now is flush on the bottom? That's where that matters. If you mix up these two walls, if you didn't go through the process I did of finding which walls go together, these would end up being slightly cantered from each other. But you'll see, because I did line them up first, that they are perfectly flush. Oops. They are perfectly flush on the bottom here and on the top. And if you do it wrong, that'll be your giveaway, is that they won't be flush. They'll be. Now normally, I just go through and make all my walls this way first. I glue the end caps on the side wall, and I move to the next long wall. And that's what I meant by how I don't want to bore you guys. I'm going to make one complete one-hole wall here in front of you. And then notice how I'm also punching out with my fingers like the rule said not to. I haven't found a trouble with these. There some more complicatedly rastered pieces that will easily break if you just pop them out that way, but I haven't found that problem with these wall kits at all. So I've been putting a lot of glue on these. I don't know if it's necessary, but I'm sure it's going to be adding to the amount of strength in the final product. Glue, glue, glue. And with that in mind, strength is not bad in an MDF kit, and in any kind of terrain where you're bouncing it around, and it's mine live in large fake Tupperware. I don't know what the generic name for those plastic bins are. In England, they call them very useful bins. I don't know if that's a brand name or not, but it's a great name. But that's where my terrain tends to live, and they can, even padded in there, they can bounce around quite a bit. So Train, just in the normal usage of a game, the train can bounce around. Now these are pretty self-explanatory. These gray squares are end caps that go over these little end walls, and then there's different lengths of wall toppers. I'm sure there's an architectural name for these, but or masonry name. It's funny, I am a Freemason. You would think I would know Masonic terms. I guess that's the difference between being a speculative Mason and an operative Mason. So that goes on there. This goes on there. Now, I don't know why, but I have found that these end caps do not want to stay on while they're drying. See that? It's always been my custom to use white glue for MDF kits. And part of that comes from my days working with boats. And I read something a long time ago about how certain glues are like meant for certain products. And often it has to do with their lineage. White glues are just beautiful for working with paper and MDF. And so, I mean, it really bonds with it and becomes part of it. It like returns to nature. So I find it a really good glue to use for MDFs. When I was watching the videos at PatMacon for Black Site Studios, they mention they use a lot of super glue. And I don't like to use super glue on my MDF kits a lot, but I have, since seeing them, I will sometimes use it. Like it wouldn't have been a bad idea on these end caps, because usually I use super glue now on anything that needs to dry quick. Sometimes MDF will have complicated constructions, particularly those Black Site kits. And then a piece like this where these keep snapping off. But if I leave it alone, it'll work fine. So that's basically how they're assembled. It's all pretty self-explanatory. I didn't know. Part of it's because I don't play a lot of science fiction games, and I think that's what a lot of their MDF kits are made for. I wasn't aware that Antenocitis, I apologize if I'm killing that name, which I probably am. I wasn't aware they did MDF kits, or if I was, I'd forgotten. I found these sort of by accident. They make some wonderful resin scatter terrain, and I've been using that for a long time. But these walls are a pretty good deal. There's quite a few wall in the package. There's 7 of the long, and I think 6 or 7 of the smaller ones. It gives you a good amount of coverage from a package. They cost, I think they were $20, I think. Not horribly cheap, but a lot of wall for that price, and walls in general can be pricey. And walls are just so useful. I mean, this is part of their survival line, but I'll be able to use these for World War II. I'll be able to use these for modern wargaming in several different environments in different cultures. So very, very useful models. Go together pretty quickly. And they're pre-painted. I think it's a good deal for a pre-painted wall. Not a bad option. I enjoy these walls. I'm very happy with them. I'll probably buy a few more. Not a lot more because I don't need it. There's a bunch in here, and it's going to cover a lot of what I was needing. But particularly with the rendered walls for some games I'm looking at doing in Arabia, I think I would like to add my collection of those. Nice models, easy to assemble and look good on the field or on the playing table. So I certainly recommend this product highly. If you found this video useful or interesting, or you know how to pronounce the company's name, go ahead and tell me in the comments down below. If you've enjoyed this video and learned something from it, go ahead and press like. If there's some comments you'd like to make about the product, or you know how to pronounce their name, go ahead and put those in the comments down below. Also, if you have any further ideas for content and information you'd like to see here on Cry Havoc Wargaming, we'd like to see those notes down in the comments as well. And if you haven't already done so, we'd appreciate if you subscribe to our page. Thank you very much, and until next time, cheers.